Hello, welcome back to this Phantasy Star 4 playthrough. It turns out I forgot some things. One of which is that Reschel, the town that was taken over by zombies, seems to be fine now. That is exceptionally fast. And that's not the only thing exceptional about it. It is exceedingly rare for a JRPG town to come back after something like that happens to it. I cannot, off the top of my head, think of any instance where that sort of thing happens. I just don't know what to say. Although maybe it's because I've been playing some of the more modern ones. Oh boy. I still have a little bit of Final Fantasy IX trauma. I would have liked to save just one town in that game. Just one. Anyway, everyone here is very outspoken about how great things are now. How there aren't any real problems with the snowfall being reasonable and the black wave being ended. And I don't know how they rebuilt things that fast or how word of the town being habitable spread that fast, but there it is. And this is why it's worth your time to go back there. It's almost like a hidden shop, really. The usual practice is to ignore a destroyed town after you encounter it for the first time. But that store has the best armor you can buy. And that's the other thing I was wrong about. I thought I had bought everything there was to buy gear-wise, but there it is. That's the last useful shop in the game. There's another unrelated thing that I forgot about, which is the muskcats. When I was talking about them in a previous video, I said that they did not appear in Phantasy Star 2, but that's not true at all. What I forgot was, you encounter them fairly soon after you arrive at Desolis in Phantasy Star 2 at the spaceport, although I believe you need an item to be able to talk with them in that game. And they are, as most things, in a bad situation. The Parmans abandoned them when the facility started to leak hazardous stuff, so some of the cats started mutating into biomonsters. I don't know why exactly they were all taken to Desolis, because in Phantasy Star 1, there were at least some living on Motavia. We might never know the answer to that one. Now, this scene kind of reminded me... It seems to be a fairly common Japanese sci-fi thing to have everything take place in one solar system, which I can't really argue with that. That's plenty of space. And there's... also, they seem to have forgotten to black out some of the stars behind that planet, but that is a very tiny nitpick. So we got ourselves what looks like a crystal planet. Alright. Just in case you weren't sure if we were reaching the end of the game, this is a fairly clear indicator. Ooh, that's fairly bold thing to say to whatever cosmic intelligence thing that is. Like, spill it! You better not hold out on us. I don't know. I know that it's in Chez's nature to speak casually to even ridiculously powerful things, but... well, sometimes I still get surprised. It means fighting. It's a JRPG, it pretty much always means fighting. But before we go, let's follow the usual tradition of looting the place. And it's very important that we do this. I'm not even joking. Because we get that. We are definitely going to need the power of that sword in the next couple of dungeons, because we do not get a fifth party member for anything on Rykros. And that's going to be very taxing for our resources. And this is also an important thing to pick up, although one of the problems with shields in the late game is that most of them cannot be used by spellcasters. In fact, the last couple of shields we've picked up are heavy shields. And because Rune's shields are kind of outdated, that means he doesn't tank nearly as well as he used to. Although, to be honest, just making Lashiek easier is enough for me. I think that's plenty of utility for that tactic. And really, I don't see a need to change it, because I can still use every point of defense I can get for that guy. And this is slightly odd. Usually, the format is to provide us an encounter where enemies can fuse together, and then not give us an encounter starting with a fused monster until later. But that's how it is in this dungeon. And these Blood Sabers are, I'd say, the most dangerous enemies in the dungeon. Since it had been a while since I've played, I was a little unsure on the right tactics to use here. But now that I know, I would definitely throw out stuff like Disrupt every time I get out an encounter like that. And that's because they have a very powerful air slash. Well, this tower is not especially long if you know what you're doing, which I kinda don't, to be honest. But the encounters hit hard enough that they are still very taxing if you spend too long in here. Well, that was a little unlucky, but I'd say I kinda got away easy. It's possible to get an ambush encounter in this tower wherein 3 of those guys, all of them use air slash and wipe half your party out. Fortunately, that's pretty rare. But if I was more aggressive on those encounters, I could have saved myself some healing resources. The Crimson Heads are not nearly as bad. They can attack one party member at a time, and although they sometimes have decent damage, it's not nearly as big a problem as the Bloodsavers. And since the tower is so short and I have so many uses of things like Hone and Air Slash, it's really just a good tactical policy to use those in every encounter you come across. And if you run out, well, you cross that bridge when you get to it. It is also very important, I know I just said that earlier, but it still is important to explore these towers thoroughly, because you get endgame gear from them. The Guard Claw in particular, because I'm not going to fight a whole lot of enemies that are weak against thunder anymore. We've gotten past that hurdle. Speaking of weapon damage types, stuff like the Laconia Sword and Guard Sword, they don't specifically say they're anything other than physical, but they all deal laser damage. In fact, pretty much every weapon past the laser weapons, they all deal laser damage unless they're specialist weapons like the Flame Sword. That means that the only way to deal straight up physical damage is with stuff like Air Slash or Hone. And seeing as it's a fairly reliable damage type, I think it's fairly generous for the game to give you stuff like that. Oh, well then. Let's explore the rest of the tower before we talk to that thing. Because I believe we just sidestepped an alternate route which led to more treasure. Although I still think it's a pretty funny idea in the story for them to see that and then slowly back off to prepare themselves a bit better. Now, I think it's important to actually show off the monster fusion that I was talking about before. And yeah, they were blade right and hack and left, but they were never in the same encounter before. Now they are, and woohoo. It's not a very strong combined monster, though. I mean, even aside from the usual combined monsters' vulnerability to instant death stuff, this one isn't even that tough to kill just through hitting it. And we got another enemy, I guess a palette swap of those Zio mages. And this time I'm going to be fairly aggressive as I asked, but it doesn't matter because they all focus fired on Shaz, killing him right away. Well, what can I say? This is the point of the game where there's not always a whole lot you can do about that. I mean, I wasn't even holding back a whole lot with my choice in attack skills. I'm a fair bit less enthusiastic about the Guard Rod than I am about the Guard Claw. If there's any reason to equip Rune with a rod instead of 2 shields, I'd actually be interested in knowing why that is, because I'm always up for learning new stuff about the game. Well, this escalated quickly. From our first sightings of the fusion monster to fighting it along with other enemies. Okay. Fortunately, these are the types that are not that difficult to deal with. That's how long it took for Eliminate to become useful. Probably maybe the last quarter of the game. 2/3 if I'm being generous. But on the other hand, I don't especially mind the idea of a skill that's not useful early on, but becomes better later, not because you get a better version or anything like that, but just because your character's overall abilities... Actually, no, that's not quite right. But because you get better opportunities to use it later. Yeah. Now that the more I think about it, the more I like the idea of a skill that's easy to kind of set aside and forget about. But if you remember you have it, you can get good mileage out of it later on when you get different situations. Once again, I can't think of too many instances of that off the top of my head. Those probably more common than JRPG towns recovering after being destroyed. And now, one of the things that make the bosses of Rycross difficult is that they're not weak to Chaz damage. They're neutral to it because nothing in the game resists it except for those whistle enemies near the start of the game, and I'm pretty sure that was just a resistance typo. But still, they only take neutral damage from it, and that's going to make things a fair bit more difficult. It's not the only thing either. One of the main reasons I was nervous about making this video is because I knew I'd have to face this guy. And it's very important to give Rika a shield here, because Devar's is big on physical damage. And that... more so than Dark Force 3. And Dark Force 3 that had that huge sword thing. In fact, putting up that barrier was kind of useless. Well, my plan here was to have Rika increase everyone's agility, and then, with that increased agility, have Rune heal himself with an item. But now that I think of it, I'm not entirely sure that the turn order is affected by stuff like Saner, or Saner, until the next round. And that would explain this. And now I'm in even more serious trouble. Because I definitely need Rune Sandwich here. I do have some items to deal with this problem, but I'm very reluctant to use a Saldu because, well, those are exceedingly rare. In retrospect, though, I shouldn't have been shy about it because Rycross is probably the set of dungeons where the party is weakest, especially in comparison to what it has to fight. It's interesting. With Lashiek, well, His attacks can be more devastating, especially another gate. However, your ability to handle that sort of thing is a lot better because Kyra is a healing machine. But as you've observed, Devars attacks the entire party every turn, and now we're relying solely on Rika to keep us alive, and, well, there are issues. I believe that the Rycross tower bosses are also the last in the game that use the standard boss music. Man, imagine fighting this boss without having shields on Rune. Well, knowing me, I probably had to do some extra grinding to deal with that. Also, well, imagine trying a no-glitch speedrun and dealing with this guy. At low level? Eesh. Although, if you're savvy enough about the game to do that, you probably know about the shield trick, among other things that I probably don't even know about. I thought, hey, maybe normal SAR would be enough to deal with this, since Rika's mental stat has increased a bit over the course of the game. But nope, still in around the 30s to 40s. Need that extra base power of Gisar, even though it hurts so much to cast that thing. And now I'm in trouble because I am out of Gisar and the boss is not dead yet. Or defeated, I should say. We definitely don't have the power to actually kill this thing. After all, it's another one of those cosmic energy beings. Ooh, yeah. Things are getting sticky enough that we have to start dealing with kind of a rarity, which is excuse me, not using Trimates. I do that before. I'm talking about using Chaz for healing. You know things are desperate when I start doing that. Well, that would have been really bad if it had gone on for a couple more turns. These rings are, well, they're headgear. Don't ask me how that works. They're a small increase in defense over the headgear that you're equipped with beforehand. Mostly they're plot items, and the fact that they can be equipped is basically a way to save you some inventory space, as far as I can tell. Now, most of the stuff makes sense to me, like the Motavia ring goes on Rika because both she and Ney were created on Motavia. Rune also known as Lutz, spends his time on Decellus, so he gets the Dezo ring. Why am I going back there? Get out. Get out right now. You have no resources past me. I don't know why Ren gets the Palma ring, though. There may be some sort of plot element that I'm unaware of. Maybe it's because he's one of the last creations of the Palman civilization or something. Actually, I think he was created a little bit after that planet was destroyed, so don't ask me. Anyway, we'll go through the next tower and the plot elements afterwards next time. See you then!